I mentioned this in headlines, but Dianne Feinstein has missed a ridiculous amount of votes over the past 50 or so days. She's been hospitalized, and I hope she's okay, with shingles. But this is not the first health issue for Dianne Feinstein. Staffers, other Democratic lawmakers have repeatedly spoken to the media about the fact that she's just not remembering things. And she is the second most powerful senator on the Judiciary Committee behind Dick Durbin. Is that true, Bradley? Is that her position?
Yeah, let me just double check. But like, she was ranking member at one point. So, and she's also like one of the most, like, of course, senior and most tenured senators in the entire body. She's been in office since 1993, if I'm remembering correctly.
And that's the seniority.
1992.
And that's the seniority piece. She's missed 60 of the 82 votes taken in the Senate generally in this calendar year. She's supposedly going to be returning next Monday. But like, when her return is just essentially so they can get these judicial nominations through, which is really important. I mean, the Biden administration, an underrated thing that they've done that's been very good is that Senate Democrats, despite having a 50-50 split for the first half of Biden's presidency in the Senate, have been able to confirm over 100 federal judges, which it means that they were outpacing, even with that narrow Senate majority, the appointments within the first half of Trump's first term. So the Biden administration needs to keep it up because this is immensely important. We're seeing this very acutely in the case of abortion. And Dianne Feinstein, this situation is getting so egregious that she's even lost Pod Save America.
There's been a lot of reporting about Dianne Feinstein no longer being fit to serve in the Senate representing the biggest state in this country. She's currently out for shingles. That is sad. That is obviously not her fault. But because she is not in the Judiciary Committee, Durbin has said that it has made it basically impossible to move a lot of these lower court nominees to the Senate for a vote, which means that Dianne Feinstein, who should not be in the Senate, is now preventing us from being able to confirm judges. And as sad as it is to sort of see someone who's had an incredibly storied and long and important career and has done a lot of good for this state, I think what the people around Dianne Feinstein are doing, allowing, being part of this farce of having a lack of a senator in such an important job, is really wrong. And Dianne Feinstein should no longer be in the Senate. She should resign, and more people should be calling on her to resign.
She really should. And it seems that Barbara Lee is angling for that. That is my guess. Barbara Lee has really, really paid her dues within the Democratic Party in California, even endorsing Kamala Harris in the primary, which was met justifiably with some anger by progressives. But the point is that, like, she's made her entire career on straddling the line between the progressive wing of the party and taking really, really courageous stances on things like the Iraq and Afghanistan war and the AUMF, while also being in with Democratic power players in circles. So, I mean, I think she'd be a very good choice if Feinstein does resign, but there seems to be no indication that she's going to. Like, this is legitimately having material impacts on our democracy. The Biden administration needs to nominate as many judges as possible because we are seeing that our democracy is under threat through the judiciary, and there's no real way and tool that we have right now except short of ignoring the rulings that are coming out of things like that extremist right-wing activist judge in Texas, which Biden says we're not going to do, basically, because it would set a dangerous precedent. We have no other tools to combat that except to have more of our guys in the judiciary.
And also, the really frustrating aspect of this for me personally is, yes, of course, she should resign. She also should have resigned probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think maybe some people should have gotten wise to it when she was got into a relatively contentious argument over climate action with a bunch of 8-year-olds and their teacher, basically saying, I've been here longer than you. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So, like, get out of my office. I think maybe some people should have realized that maybe the retail politics aspects were finished for the 81-year-old woman who was screaming at a bunch of 9-year-olds who were like, please don't set the planet on fire.
81 is generous. 81 is generous.
Yeah, whatever.
She's 89 now.
Yeah, so it might have been 85.
Yeah, whatever.
So there was, even from that point, from like a half a decade ago, she probably should have resigned.
Yes.
Because it's also, as you've said, even with Barbara Lee, but there are so many. I mean, and what I mean by that is, I'm not even saying these people are like the best options, but I'm saying there is an enormous bench of any like sort of bearable to like pretty good Democrats in California that could easily take that seat and be a rubber stamp for whatever the Biden administration would want to get passed in the Senate, or whatever Chuck Schumer would want in terms of their policy priorities. And speaking of Schumer, that's where my ire goes primarily, is because we're hanging our hat too much on respecting her career. If you respected her career and you respected her as a person, you wouldn't let her continue to frankly embarrass herself like this and to be put in positions where she's actively confused, and where active confusion is a huge problem for someone with that much power and represents millions of Americans. Also,
Schumer could take her off the committee
Schumer
tomorrow.
Could take her off the committee right now and replace her with another senator, and there would be no harm, no foul. He could trade her with someone on the agriculture committee in the Senate, and it wouldn't do it. It would literally not change a thing.
Yeah.
You could put Tina Smith on from Minnesota in a heartbeat, and this problem would be fixed without her even retiring. They're being so unbelievably and unnecessarily fragile about this to basically not hurt a woman's feelings who, respectfully, by all accounts, doesn't really know what's going on.
Yes. It's human for them to be sensitive about this. I get that. Of course. They're probably friends. I don't know, but I'm sure that's painful. And they want to respect her. But you guys can be friends when you go and take a walk in the park, okay? If she's up for that. You
go visit her in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like on a donor retreat. Like you can say hi.
Yes. I mean, you can respect this and also not put the country at risk, because we need as many non-insane federal judges as possible. I mean, it falls on, that's a great point by you. I mean, it falls on Chuck Schumer, as you say. It also falls on Dick Durbin, who is the head of the committee, not seemingly doing anything about it, and also continues to not scrap that whole blue slip process that the Republicans do to make the judiciary, the judicial nomination process a lot slower. He could do away with that rule tomorrow, but it's just another example of Democrats on the conservative side wanting to withhold institutional guardrails like the filibuster or the blue slips, that they're like, well, we can use them to our advantage at some point. You guys are in the majority in terms of the number of people that you represent in the Senate. When it was a 50-50 split, 40 million more Americans represented by the Democratic 50 versus the Republican 50. So the point is that, like, maintaining these institutions that put a guardrail on progress only helps the right. I mean, Dick Durbin knows this, but just from his own self-interest, this blue slip process, it gives Republicans way more power to slow this than they should. But these guys are just dinosaurs. And for Feinstein, she seems to be really failing in health. And the stakes are high. So let's get to it.
All this is to say that Senate collegiality should be in the DSM. It's a mental illness. Like, these people are like, we have lunch together, so therefore we should literally have more power than anyone in the entire world.
Yeah.
Like, we have lunch together and like sit outside sometimes. So therefore, like, even if you are a virulent racist, like, he's my pal.
Hey folks, one of the biggest challenges we have in today's media world is, how do I become an educated media consumer? And for me, what helps me understand what's happening with stories out there and how it's being reported, I use Ground News. What it does is it breaks down how a story is being covered, both on ideological lines, left, center, right, and in terms of corporate, non-corporate media. It's all there, very transparent. It gives you the opportunity to look at how a story is being covered internationally by neighboring countries or countries around the globe. It also has this feature called blind spots, where you can see if there's a story that is being covered more by the left or the right. You can start to see how media narratives are built. It's a fascinating site. It's a really helpful tool to educate yourself on media. Ground.news/majority. Try it for yourself. It's going to enhance both your understanding of the news today and long term. It's going to build your ability to be a better media consumer. Check it out. ground.news/majority.